Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon, you nerd.
What's going on? Hey, it's Mike from 424 Recording Podcast. This is episode number 35, you dirty procrastinator. I've been working on some ideas about procrastination. I was at the library the other day, and I was just kind of walking around getting some exercise, and I needed to pick up a movie that I had ordered there. Somebody had recommended me to watch the movie Slacker by Richard Linklater, I think his name is. Anyway, I was there kind of looking for a new book because I had finished the Yvonne Chouinard book last week, Let My People Go Surfing. Great book, highly recommended. Fascinating life story, one of those outlier type people who really is changing the world, I think. And so I was kind of looking for a new book. I didn't have anything new on the list. I've had a few that are on order, but that haven't come in yet. And I was just looking through the library catalog. I wasn't really sure I was going to stick around there for any length of time. And I just decided, well, let me look through the catalog. What are some topics that I'm interested in? So I typed in productivity and procrastination, I think. And this book actually came up, which sounded pretty fascinating. Chris Bailey. It's called The Productivity Project. Now, one thing I want to mention is that there are so much stuff in today's world about productivity porn, like this sort of idea of like hustle porn, like, everybody's like, oh, this is the big new thing. Everybody's got to be more productive. There's so many self-help books. It's kind of like the buzz these days, the buzzword. Everybody's into the zeitgeist. It's all about, in today's mechanized world, how productive can you be in your company, in your personal life, in your personal relationships. But I got to say, this book is actually, for the first time in a while, I just kind of found a random book. Nobody had ever recommended to me. Sounded interesting. Went over to the shelf, picked it up, went to read it. And I was there for about a half hour just reading this. I read about a third of it pretty quickly. And it's a pretty quick read. And I was like, well, this book must be pretty good if I'm here and I've read it this long. I usually give a book about a few page test and whether it holds my interest or not. Kind of like when you watch a movie and you watch the first 20 minutes and you're like, well, do I really want to finish this? Sometimes you can figure out quicker. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. But anyway, really glad I found this book. I've been pulled a lot of the ideas from today's podcast from this, and it's really fascinating because I've been getting down on myself a little bit about being a procrastinator with certain things. I've always kind of been a bad procrastinator. It's something I've wanted to change. And the good news is that everyone procrastinates. Anybody who tells you that they don't procrastinate is lying. Everyone is procrastinating all the time for all sorts of reasons. And there's no point in beating yourself up if you are also a procrastinator, because everybody does it. One thing that's really funny about this book, I don't know if you could see it on the video, if you're watching the video, but the dude, I was reading this book and I was like, oh, this guy's really cool. I didn't really think much about, I didn't look at the jackets. And then I looked at this dude's picture and he's very similar. I feel like if you're watching the video, it might be very obvious. He's got blondish brown hair. He's got a brown beard. He's some white dude from Canada. Not that I'm from Canada, but the other part rings true. And so I'm really been enjoying this book. It really breaks down. It really has opened my eyes to some things I had never considered about procrastination. And it obviously makes me feel better if everyone procrastinates, but the basic breakdown for why people procrastinate about things come from 6 reasons, according to Chris. And also there's another book that he references, which I don't know the title of offhand, but you procrastinate because something's boring, something is frustrating, difficult, unstructured or ambiguous, lacking in personal meaning, or lacking in intrinsic rewards, not fun engaging. So the more of these attributes are on any kind of given topic or subject or thing that you have to do, the less attractive it is to you to do those things. And I was thinking about this in the context of my old job. I used to work at the post office. I did that for, I think, almost 8 years. And I fucking hated it for a lot of reasons. And I used to procrastinate just going to work. Luckily, my boss at the time was really cool. allowed me to come in later because I was a good worker. I could get things done pretty quickly. And, the way that the system was set up, I'd be waiting around for half an hour some days for things to do because all the mail wasn't on time or whatever. So luckily my boss was cool, worked it out with him. I could come in later. And a lot of the stuff when I was doing the beginning of the channel, all those videos were done in the morning before I had to go to work, which will bring me tie into another thing called biological prime time, which I want to talk about. I guess I could talk about it now really quickly. And which is certain times of the day you have more energy, certain times of the day you're more creative, certain times of the day there's things that you want to do more so than others. Everybody knows about the 3 p.m. siesta nap time kind of vibe that you get around 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Everybody hits that lull, the caffeine's worn off. It's a weird time of day where you're not quite out of work, but you're almost out of work and you're thinking about other things and your mind is wandering. And it's that part of the marathon where you've expended so much energy and now you're in like a slump and really trying to get something done. Oh, something's going outside. It's snowing right now. I got some horns honking. So hopefully it doesn't take me out of my flow state here. But basically your energy fluctuates throughout the day. And what I worked out with my boss at my old job was something I realized, something that used to piss me off to no end was I recognized that without knowing that this is what this guy calls it, Chris, biological prime time, kind of realized that the best time for me is the morning. Anytime from like 7 to like 1 p.m. is when I feel most creative, is when I feel, and probably the prime time in there is like 9 to 11 or maybe 8 to 12, something like that. And also I feel like in the middle of the night too, but life dictates that such that you can't really stay up all night anymore to do stuff like when I was younger. So basically there's times of day where you're more apt to wanting to do things and have more energy to do the things that you want to do, right? Do something you want to do today. So the things that used to piss me off about my job was that about really any job I've ever had that took place in the morning was now I'm giving my best energy to this job that I fucking loathe. And which is why my boss was really cool and I was able to go in at 10:30 some days, most days really, or like 9, between 9:30 and 10:30 is when I used to roll in, and I'd wake up at 6 and blast out a video or work on something I wanted to work on, do some writing, do some music. Because I recognized that that part of the day was the best time of day for me to get the things done that I wanted to get done. And I had the energy to do those things because as anybody knows, if you have a full-time job or a part-time job or any kind of job that cuts into your schedule when you feeling most creative, by the time 5 p.m. rolls around, you come home and you unwind and you don't really have much energy to do anything because you expended your best time, your best energy at your job most likely. And also you have other responsibilities, family, kids, making dinner, saying hi to people, being with the pets, watching Netflix, playing Fortnite, whatever it is people do, video games. So at that time of day, you're less wanting to do things. And that's what I feel like a lot of people fall into when they say, oh, I don't have any time, I don't have any energy. And I don't know, you got to figure out when your best biological prime time is. And for me, it was in the morning. It is in the morning. So I've been trying to hack that lately. That's my contribution to the productivity porn mill. I've been really trying to hack my productivity, man, like getting up early, doing my thing, And so it's fascinating to me because I was looking at my job under this why I used to hate going there, and not only because of this biological prime time, but because, here we go. My job, the reasons why people procrastinate, like I laid out earlier, it was boring to me. It was frustrating. It was boring because it was putting pieces of paper into metal slots, driving around old fossil fuel vehicles, polluting the environment. 90% of the shit that you get in the mail, you probably throw out anyway. It's useless. You're basically just a junk man, a garbage man, killing the earth, and it was a shit fucking job, man. And I don't mean to disrespect on anybody who enjoys it, but I mean, go into any post office and you can see what the faces of the people that work there and what those people are like. But so it was really boring to me. I'm sorry. It's a fucking boring job. People don't even need. That's what I mean. That also kind of goes into some of the other meanings. It's lacking in personal meaning. It had no personal meaning to me. and intrinsic rewards. It wasn't that fun, and it wasn't great thinking about those kind of things in terms of the job, pollution, pointlessness, etc. And so for me, it was really boring. It was very menial, and I just couldn't I just didn't. It didn't jive with me. As an end to make money to do the things I wanted to do, yeah. But eventually, it got to the point where I wasn't doing the things I wanted to do because I was always there, killing myself and making money, and it didn't, in a way that it just like, would you rather be monetarily rich or time rich, which is another thing I want to get into. Maybe not today because it's kind of a whole other idea. But so it was a boring job. Let's just leave it at that. It was frustrating. The management is like a big bureaucracy. There's different rules wherever you worked. You had to get sent around all these different places, and there was ways the offices were different, and stuff was never on time. It wasn't always like, okay, you get this here, this here, this here. That's why I was able to go in late, because the stuff was never on time. It was never consistently. But if I went in late, if I went in at 10, then everything was guaranteed to be there, unless it was some crazy anomaly, at which point my boss would call me and say, hey, I still have to come in, but it was like you had to wait for certain things to come and be sorted. And some days that stuff would be done at 7. Some days that would be done at 8:30. Some days it would be done at 10. And that would fuck me up, man. It's like the structure of it, just give me something to do. Like having some kind of structure where it's like maybe a psychologist or a doctor or, I don't know, a mechanic, where it's like, okay, from 7 to 8, I'm probably going to work on this car. From 8 to 9, I'm going to see this person, whatever. Like that structure is really important, I think, for people. And that's also that leads into one of the other reasons of things you procrastinate on, because they're unstructured or ambiguous. It was like, always like, I don't know what's happening. Like, well, I don't know what you should do now. I don't know what this is. I don't know if this person's going to be home. I don't know, like all this kind of shit. It was a mess. Difficult. It wasn't a difficult job for me. I used to blast it out, and it was great in that respect, because whether I did my work in 9 hours or 5 hours, I was home and paid the same amount, whatever the routes and things were evaluated. So whether you did your job in 10 hours or did your job in 6, you still got paid for 8. So the incentive is do it in 6 and get the fuck out. But I mean, it was difficult in the sense of managing the personalities that I was around. Difficult for me to not have deep thoughts like we talked about last week and been talking about a bit about it. It was difficult, a little bit of social anxiety, not much. Interfacing with the public, I've never really had an issue with. I'm a chameleon. I can kind of get along with everybody. And so difficult. It was difficult not in the, I mean, it was difficult on your body though too, I guess. So there were many aspects of it that made it difficult, but not on like a level of maybe that what this is referring to, like when something's difficult, when you have to study for a test and it's difficult to, remember terms and things like that. I think that's why you would procrastinate. If you have to go change the oil in your car and it's difficult to you, or you have to have all these other steps before you can do that, then you're going to procrastinate on that. If you have to do your taxes, which is something Chris brings up in the book, Productivity Project, then, if it's a difficult process, you're not going to want to do it. So unstructured, I spoke a little bit about why the job was like that. Lacking in personal meaning, I think I covered, and lacking in intrinsic rewards. I mean, there were some days when it was fun. There were some days when it was engaging. Obviously the money thing, but I don't think money has ever been a great motivator for me. Especially because of the kinds of the way that I'm trying to not think about things as much as deeply anymore, but especially for that reason, which I guess is my problem. But so anyway, the point I wanted to bring up about it is this was not a great fit for me, because if everyone procrastinates and you're trying to be a more productive person, then finding something that will ease that procrastination or make you want to move through that procrastination, I think is crucial to your development as an individual, what you can give back to society, having a positive outlook on life, and, spreading that positivity to other people, and just doing something that's rewarding to you as a person. I think the world is such that I can do this kind of channel and podcast about these kind of topics that are passionate for me and that I want to talk about, and people get something out of it. To me, that's whether I'm making $0 or $1 million, like that shit almost doesn't even matter compared to just something I want to do. And that's why I always say, do something you want to do, right? And that's what I was kind of getting at with the channel, like looking at this stuff in terms of the channel, and the podcast and everything I do creatively. It's not boring to me. I love it. I love the challenge of it. I love trying new angles, trying to get the audio better, whatever, trying to do the lighting, working within the means of the 4-track, working within the means of my monetary situation, working within, the equipment that I have. That's I like the challenge of that, and that's why I do it. Frustrating. It's not frustrating at all, and under any circumstance that I think it's relating to this. I don't procrastinate on doing things. Sometimes I do procrastinate on setting things up, and I think the most frustrating part is the setup sometimes. Like I kind of wish, I do this it's got to be 6 by, whatever this is. We'll say not even 36 square feet or less that I'm doing this whole thing in, that you see all these videos done in. And it's like, to me, that's frustrating just because I want to have other things set up. I want to have my bass rig. I want to have my drums. I want to have mics. I want to have all this stuff. But unfortunately, that's not in my, possibilities right now, which hopefully someday it will be. But, the way where I live and monetarily, it just doesn't make sense to go rent a place. But, I've been working with Jay. Maybe I can do some more stuff there if I really want to. But, this works. It's not frustrating in the sense of where my other job was frustrating, or where other things that I procrastinate on are frustrating. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like, those things don't impede me from doing what I want to do with this. So it's like I don't procrastinate, because if it did, I just wouldn't even be doing this. It's difficult in a great way, not in a way that makes me not want to do it. When something's difficult and you have no interest in it, then it's like, oh my God, why would I ever want to, pave a parking lot? That's difficult and it doesn't interest me at all. So that would be the last thing I would want to do. Unstructured or ambiguous. Yeah, it can be, right? But I've been working on a structure of doing certain videos every week, doing certain series, doing this, doing that. That really helps to structure things and make it less ambiguous. Whether I show up or not, that's what I define my success as. That's the rubric I'm working within, so that's my structure. I'm always developing a structure, trying to become more productive in my structure, and, doing a couple of videos a day or whatever. That's the structure, or for the week, whatever. Lacking in personal meaning. There's a lot of meaning to this for me. This is the stuff I'm passionate about, This is the stuff I want to do. This is the stuff I want to create. I do think that Steve Jobs' quote about there's two main forces in the world today, creative forces and destructive forces. I really do think that, that's why creativity is important to me. I kind of recognize that it's better to be somebody or something creating something than destroying or putting other people down, or in a system that's destroying things, I guess. That's a little ambiguous. Hopefully you don't procrastinate on listening to the rest of this. No. But yeah, so lacking in personal meaning. It means a lot to me. It means a lot that I can share my tactics and tips and knowledge that I have. That's the whole reason I wanted to start this, because I was going to give up on music and other things. And, I just said, well, at least I'll be able to put out some knowledge to people, that it won't just like die with me or whatever. I've learned how to do these things. Maybe I can save somebody else the heartache and the struggle and, trying to figure out how to do something or get your creative motivation going, whatever. And lacking in intrinsic rewards. There's a lot of rewards to this. It is fun. It is engaging. It makes me feel good when I'm able to do one of these and speak pretty well and, light it and it looks cool. And, I get to talk to somebody else or do the stream with Jay or make some cool video about something, or like, that's fun as shit. That's why, I do definitely procrastinate on some things with the channel. I would be lying if I said everybody procrastinates, but I guess just looking at it in terms of the lens of something that I used to do, an old job, and something that, is sort of a part-time job, like doing all these videos and stuff. So I just wanted to kind of give a dichotomy or a left and right, a yin and yang sort of idea of. So I guess the point is, I think the goal is to not procrastinate as much for me. Maybe it is for you too. I don't know. It depends how bad of a procrastinator you are, but I never really looked too deeply into procrastination. And I'm just looking at the time. It looks like I thought it was, okay, never mind. I never looked too deeply into procrastination, which is why this book is super serendipitous, man. Like sometimes, I mean, it sounds hokey, but the universe sends you shit. Like the fact that I was able to just find this, like that never happens to me, and or hasn't happened to me in a long time. I've checked out so many books and constantly looking for something new to read, and sometimes most stuff doesn't engage me, and this was really cool. Maybe it was my own doing, right? But yeah, so I guess those are the main things I wanted to point out about procrastination. Don't beat yourself up, because everybody procrastinates. But if you want to get better at it, check out this book, The Productivity Project. I think it's going to help me out a lot. I'm going to probably reread the whole thing because I already read about a third of it, but I think I'm going to start over. I kind of jumped around and started on the middle, sort of. But yeah, maybe you can get Chris Bailey on the podcast. I don't know. He seems like a pretty cool dude. Maybe he'd want to do an interview. Who knows? That would be funny, right? And but yeah, so figure out your biological prime time. When you work the best on things. And because then you can, 10x your productivity, perhaps, if you're working on things that you want to work on at a time of day when you have the most energy to do them. Makes sense to me. I'm just going to keep trying to structure my life around this idea now of morning is my time, and I'm going to defend that time judiciously. This is an important time for me to work on things and feel productive and feel creative and not procrastinate on things, So, yeah. All right, well, it seems like it's getting darker out. Looks like the screen is a lot darker than when I started. This is going to be snowing soon. Hope you're doing something you want to do today, and I hope you're not procrastinating on things. And if you are, remember, everyone procrastinates, and the reason you're procrastinating is because it's boring. Whatever the task is boring, frustrating, difficult, unstructured, or ambiguous, lacking in personal meaning for you, or lacking in some intrinsic reward. And it might be a sign that whatever you're procrastinating on is not something that's jives with you or something that you want to be doing. Just putting it out there. If you find yourself procrastinating a lot on things that you should be doing. Anyway, we'll catch you on the flip-flop. Make sure you do something you want to do today, okay?